Grin's been a go-to place for unique and unusual e-bike build projects. A large number of those have involved running multiple motors on a single platform. So in this video, we're going to go over a sort of practical guide on when and why you might consider running dual motors on an e-bike. This can include mid-drive motors combined with direct drive hub motors. It can include mixing a geared motor and a direct drive motor, or running two symmetric motors, say on either side of a trike or a quad vehicle. So why would you consider running more than one motor on a bicycle? Well, for the simple reason that a single motor or the motor that's installed isn't adequate for what you're doing. People come in all shapes and sizes and all different weight ranges, and people ride in all different kinds of terrain. And most bicycle hub motors are kind of sized and tailored for an average sized person riding up average grade hills. But if you're dealing with really steep inclines, or you're dealing with more than a typical rider weight, often the stock motors that come on e-bikes are insufficient for the job. They'll feel anemic or weak, they'll stall out, or they risk overheating and burning up. So the reason that this issue can really creep up unexpectedly is because of a strong nonlinear relationship between the motor heating and the size of the rider. If you're twice as heavy of an individual, then the motor has to put out twice as much torque to climb the same hill at the same speed. But double the torque actually generates 4 times as much heat inside a given motor, and that means a system that breezes up a hill with an average rate rider might completely cook and bonk out with somebody who's twice as heavy. Another not so obvious benefit of running dual motors like this is that, contrary to your expectations, it can actually increase the range that you get from your battery pack. You might naively think that by having two motors, you're drawing twice as much power all the time, and that your battery range would suffer greatly as a result, but it doesn't actually work that way. The motors are only drawing half as much power individually, and they're able to do that at a higher efficiency than one motor doing all the work. So believe it or not, adding a second motor could actually increase the distance that you're able to travel, especially if you're dealing with these steep hills and or heavy cargo vehicles that are really bogging down a single drive. So if you're building a system from scratch and you can find a single motor that's powerful enough and has the torque for what your application requires, definitely go that route. It's going to be a simpler and most likely a less expensive setup. But if you can't find one motor on your platform that can pull the loads, deal with the grades that you have, that's a great option to consider dual motors. Another situation that comes up is if you already have an e-bike with a single motor on it and it's just not performing the way that you need it to. In this case, since you've already got a motor on the setup, it can often make more sense to get a second medium power motor than completely replacing the original motor with one larger, more powerful version. And that's the situation that we have right here. So this was a customer who bought a factory cargo bike, but it's running a pretty small geared motor on the back, and he was planning to use it to carry his 3 children to school and daycare, but he lives in North Vancouver, which has some pretty significant grades for going anywhere. He got this bike over a year ago and has only done about 70 kilometers because it's been so wimpy and underwhelming to deal with moving his kids around that he's stuck to using the other cargo bike he has with the Grin hub motor. So he came to Grin initially asking if he could just replace this weak motor with a more powerful one, but I said, since you've already got a perfectly fine motor on here, why don't we just add a second motor to the front, and then you get the benefit of even more capabilities than just one all-axle motor can provide. Now this is an example of a bicycle that has a geared hub motor, and what we'd be putting on the front would be a direct drive motor. And that's one of the most sensible applications for a dual wheel drive system because it kind of generates the best of both worlds. You can have a system where the direct drive motor now adds regenerative braking, and when you're running just one motor, so when you're going on the flats or don't have a steep hill, you can put all the power in the direct drive motor, which will be most efficient, and then you only have the geared motor kick in when you're loading things going up steeper hills. So this is the oldest dual motor system we have floating around at Grin, and this is a Christiana style cargo trike that we originally had commissioned by a gal who ran a company called Trikes, and it was to deliver all of the daily packages that we had orders coming in from our website to the local post office. And in this situation, we have 2 motors in order to have the necessary power and torque for moving cargo in the hills in Vancouver. But it was really important that both those motors were fairly symmetric because the motors can have a steering component to the vehicle. If one motor produces substantially more torque than the other, that would tend to steer the handlebars, which you have to counter steer to fight against. In these kind of situations, running with our phase runner and base runner motor controllers, each motor always has the same torque. So when you're cornering or whatever you're encountering, you're guaranteed that there's no twisting component that the motors are contributing to the bicycle. We've since long ago transitioned to having the delivery companies pick up all the parcels at Grin, so we no longer need to take them to the post office. And this vehicle has now taken on a new life for the last 10 years as our main scrap metal delivery vessel. We load this up with all the aluminum, steel motor cores that we have at Grin and ferry it to the scrapyards and back, and it shows just the inherent robustness of running a direct drive system that 2 decades on, it's not had a single hiccup or problem. This next example of a dual motor drive system is also starting off with a factory e-bike, but in this case, instead of a geared hub motor, it's running a mid-drive. In fact, a very early generation Shimano Steps mid-drive, and this happens to be my own cargo bike that I started to ride after my original cargo bike got stolen. For me, this was an interesting experience to get familiar with the performance and the power consumption of commercial factory bikes, especially a proprietary Shimano setup. So I was doing it primarily as an R&D pursuit, but then realizing it's a long-tail bike, I adopted it as my main commuter. So moving from previously riding an all-axle motor setup to riding this Shimano mid-drive, I found it woefully inadequate on all the things that I loved. So the small battery pack didn't have the range that I needed to do the errands, dropping off kids at daycare and school, making it to work, making it back home. And the power output of the Shimano Steps mid-drive was nowhere near what I needed and was used to climbing up the steep hills in North Vancouver. So going over overpasses or the steeper grades, I'd basically have to slow down to 10 to 12 kilometers an hour, whereas I'm used to and much prefer keeping my commuting speed up in the 25 kilometer an hour range. So in this situation, I kind of had the brainwave that I'd love to add a hub motor to the setup. That gives me the benefit of regenerative braking, it gives me power at a higher top speed, and it also gives a really unique experience for testing a control system theory that I had. And that's it, I can use the torque sensing nature of the Shimano mid-drive for both the mid-drive and the hub motor to not have to deal with 2 separate control systems. So in this situation on this bike, most of the time I'm riding, I'm only using the hub motor at the back. There's no point having any noise or power going into the mid-drive. It's not going to add any efficiency, and it makes an annoying audible noise that I don't quite enjoy. But once I'm doing a steep hill climb, I then add 1 or 2 levels of assist with the Shimano. Now I'm getting the extra power delivery through the drivetrain, and incidentally, that puts more torque on the rotor at the back, and the torque assist of the all-axle motor now gets multiplied by the torque assist of the pedal system, and all the while I just have proportional pedal torque control. On this build, I did something else I don't recommend in general, but wanted to experiment with, and that's augmenting the range of the small Shimano battery pack with LIGO battery modules so that I had the necessary 600 to 700 watt hours that I typically want on a cargo bike like this. And so I managed to parallel tap the LIGOs with the Shimano battery without impacting the system, so I had one larger battery pack and one battery that was better able to handle the power draw of both those motors. So another really popular use case for dual motor drive systems are Tadpole Trikes, where you're electrifying the front motors in a single side mount. So here we have our very first prototype cat trike on which we developed the single side mounting all axle motors, and now some of Grin's staff has taken this on as their main commuter. In this situation, with this style of linkage, you don't strictly need 2 motors. You can get away having the motor on just one of the 2 sides, but for symmetry reasons, a lot of people prefer just having both motors being powered. And once again, that gives absolutely insane hauling and hill climbing capabilities. And finally, this last bicycle that you see in our shop here is a customer build running dual all-axle hub motors, but it's got a larger Max 45 motor on the rear and our standard smaller motor on the front. This is a situation where running asymmetrical motors actually makes a little bit of sense. Now, this particular customer originally had a factory dual motor e-bike from China that he quite loved to ride. It had separate throttles for the front and the rear motor, and he found himself riding on trails where he would kick in the front motor to help climb over obstacles or logs on the road, which is something you can uniquely do with the front drive, but otherwise mostly using the rear motor as his main assistance. But that Chinese e-bike kept having failures, reliability problems. He couldn't get any support from the manufacturer, so he wanted a similar performing system that he could build, understand, and maintain from scratch, and hence he created this beautiful specimen. Now, running a lower power motor on the front can make sense, especially riding in trails, because the front motor doing the same torque as the rear motor is more likely to skid out, given that there's less mass on here. So we've configured this system so that when he does hit the throttle, both motors are generating power, but the front motor is about 40% less torque than the rear, so that even accelerating off the line, he'll get a steady acceleration without skidding. Now in this system, the rear motor provides automatic torque sensing and pedal cadence sensing plugged into the motor controller hooked up there. So when he's riding on and is just using pedal assist mode, all the power goes to the rear. Whenever he wants a kick of more power, the throttle splits it to both as discussed, and then whenever he wants regenerative braking, this bidirectional throttle in a regen mode applies a powerful braking force on both motors, allowing him to come to a controlled but swift stop. You can see as well that he's got quite a large gas tank style battery on the down tube here. Because he's running fairly powerful motors here, you do need a large capacity battery to deliver the necessary current to both of those systems. We'll talk in more details in battery selection a little bit later. So we've now seen a number of systems where we have dual motors installed and an explanation on why those make sense in those applications, but we didn't discuss in any detail the actual logistics and wiring hookup to run two motors off a single control and battery. And that's what we're going to talk about in this next section. So if you want to run dual motors on a bike, kind of the simplest and most obvious approach is to have two totally independent setups. That would be each motor has its own motor controller, its own battery, its own throttle, its own brakes, its own display, its own on-off switch. And that is the safest and only option if you're dealing with a factory e-bike with a proprietary setup. So if you, for instance, have a Bosch e-bike and you want to have the benefits of a hub motor with regenerative braking and extra efficiency, you'll only do that by running a secondary battery, control, and display and run those two systems independently. It'll be a little bit cluttered on the handlebars, but it'll totally work, and there's no risk of interference between the two setups. But for the most part, it's much nicer when you can consolidate it all to just one display, one throttle, ideally one battery pack, one set of brake sensors, one set of pedal sensors, and have it feel like a more integrated and engineered system. And at Grin, we provide two very nice cable solutions to provide that capability. We have a dual controller system for our Superharness kits, and we also have a dual controller splitter for cycle analyst setups. Now both of these cables look and function in a very similar way. They allow two motor controllers to have their signals merged to go up to a single set of handlebar controls. So one display on the bars, one throttle, one brake cutoff. But they both have different nuances and applications. So when you parallel split signals like this for two motor controllers, we can't just connect all of the 8 or 9 wires together in parallel, because it introduces a lot of risks. For instance, if the battery cable becomes unplugged from one motor controller, then that controller will still get energized from the splitter cable, and it will attempt to drive the motor with all the current flowing through this very thin gauge wire, quickly burning it up and causing traces to fail. Similarly, the motor controllers output 5 volts to control things, but you don't want both of them sharing that 5 volt signal, because if one controller is not powered up, that 5 volts will power up the controller, but it won't have a battery hookup, etc., etc. So we have to be really careful on how we do this splitting combination. So in both of these splitters, you'll notice that we have one side with a red heat shrink band and the other side without. And that differentiates what we call the primary controller with the secondary controller. The primary controller is the one whose power is hooked up to the on-off control switch. It's the one whose 5-volt bus powers, say, the Superharness, and it's also the one that's in communications with the motor controller if it's a setup that does controller communications. On the secondary motor controller, all that's being shared here are the necessary throttle and e-brake signals so that it can mirror what's going on the first controller. Now, the behavior that results is a little bit different on a main 9 and a Superharness system. In a Superharness system, the primary controller is what communicates to the display. It's the only one that knows what assist level you're in, and it's also the only one in which the torque or pedal sensor is plugged into, so it can do pedal assist. When you run dual motors with a main 9 Superharness and a main 9 splitter, your pedal assist behavior is only being driven to the primary motor. Then when you use the throttle or regenerative braking, that applies to both motors. This kind of situation is perfect and almost most ideal if you're running dual motors with a geared motor and a direct drive motor, since it means that most of the time the direct drive motor is supplying the power, the geared motor just freewheels when you're in normal pedal assist mode, and you have the throttles to give you that punch for extra hill climbing when it's necessary. And you only deal with the noise and the whine of the gears when you need that power, not constantly like you do if it's part of the pedal assist system. The downside, of course, is that the power that you see on the display is only the power shown from one of the motors. On our cycle analyst splitter, the situation is quite a bit different. In a cycle analyst setup, the torque and pedal sensor plugs into the cycle analyst, not into the motor controller. So as a result, when you have pedal assist mode enabled, that power is distributed equally to the two different motors in your system. It also can sense the power and the current flow from both motor controllers. So the watts, your consumed amp hours, all the analytic data like your watt hours per kilometer is now perfectly accurate at capturing the combined power of both motor systems. So which option depends a little bit both on your analytic preferences for display, but also on the specific behavior that you want when it comes to pedal assist mode. So if you check out the new dual motor kit bundles that we have on our website, you'll see that every motor option is available either as a cycle analyst dual motor kit or a Superharness version. If you're running a system like a Tadpole Trike with 2 front motors and pedal assist, you really want the cycle analyst control mode because that ensures that when you're pedaling, both the front hub motors are being driven. But if you have those more unusual combinations of, say, a geared motor and a direct drive motor, it might be preferential to choose the Superharness. But in all cases, you could run one way or the other. You just have to understand the differences. So the last topic I wanted to dive into is the battery choice, and that does require a little bit of extra consideration. So it's always safest and best to have a single battery pack that is powering both motor controllers. Having separate batteries for each controller can cause complications when one battery cuts out before the other, and parallel connecting 2 batteries also has its own safety ramifications. Now, I mentioned at the intro to this video that contrary to your expectations, you might actually draw less power and use less of the battery pack with 2 motors than you do with 1 motor. And that is true over the course of a long trip on average. But the peak power that you can draw with 2 motors and 2 controllers is higher. And it's important that your battery pack has a BMS circuit that can supply the maximum current draw of both your primary and secondary motor controllers. Most larger batteries from 15 to 20 amp hours or more will have no problem running a dual motor system, as typically their BMS circuit has at least a 40 amp minimum trip current. But even if you have a battery pack with a lower trip current than that, you can safely keep the system within that operating range by individually limiting the maximum battery current on both the phase runner and base runner motor controllers, so that combined it's still less than what the BMS can do. So another common question that comes up with dual motor systems, especially when you're dealing with side mounting, is whether you need some kind of differential control to drive the outside motor faster than the inside motor when you're cornering. And the answer to that is not at all. With our systems, each motor always drives the same torque regardless of how fast it's spinning. So it doesn't matter that the inside motor is spinning slower, both motors will be producing the same torque at the same throttle signal, and you don't have ever to worry about a need for differential control. Now, when you're dealing with front and rear motors, especially motors of different types, it's always best to match the kV winding speed, so the RPM per volt that the motor is good for. Some people have this mistaken idea that it's really smart to have a really slow speed motor for hill climbing and a fast speed motor for going fast, and then you switch from the slow motor to the fast motor depending on where you're at in your terrain. That is almost always less efficient and worse performance than both motors always running all the time and both motors being tailored to the maximum speed that you want to travel at. We hope you found this video informative and demystified a lot about what's required to build a dual motor bike setup. We're hoping that with the new kit bundles on our website, this is a much easier option for people to navigate. Of course, as I say in the intro, don't do this unless you need 2 motors, but if you do need 2 motors, Grin is here to help you make that happen, and we look forward. Thanks for watching.
Wheels forwards, harness display, working this way.